Okay, so what I want to talk to you about now is that finishing process. Every thesis comes to an end, and you need to get it finished and submitted. You need to get it published, and there are all sorts of logistical things that you need to consider. Not least is the issue of copyright. First, however, you need to remember that finishing the thesis is the ultimate goal. You are not trying to produce something worthy of a Nobel Prize or a major award. Your thesis won't be perfect, and there will always be things you are unhappy with. Eventually, however, you just need to recognize that it is time to stop typing, call it a day, and submit it. And obviously by this stage you'll have been through a couple of rounds of revision and review with your supervisor, and they'll be able to tell you if it's ready or not. There are, of course, some key things that do need to be in place in your thesis before that point of submission. The first, and perhaps the most obvious, is have you answered your research question, even if that answer is no. Some research questions don't work out, but that is your research question, that's what you're researching, and so to say at the end, we didn't find that, or that isn't the case, is a perfectly acceptable conclusion. But you do need to have that conclusion. You do need to refer back to your research question at the end of your thesis to demonstrate that you've come to an answer and conclusion. The second important thing is, have you supported your thesis and discussion with literature that demonstrates your understanding of the topic and its implications? Is there a context around which your research question fits? That is also an important part of the thesis. And have you explained what you've done and why you've done it? If someone came to read your thesis, would they be able to understand what your process was, how you came to the conclusions that you did? And finally, does the thesis make sense when you read it? It may make sense to you, but remember, you know all the background, you know all the information that's in your head that's not on the page. Proofread it at least twice and get a friend to read it too if you can persuade someone. That way you're going to get the opinion of someone that doesn't know all that background and is going to be distanced from the document, and so if they can understand it, then you're probably in a good place. Once you submit it, of course, it then gets further reviewed. It gets reviewed by at least 2 people who will read it with the understanding that they are examining that thesis. So don't forget that the review process after submission is also an iterative process. Your committee and examiners will have comments to make. They may well ask for clarifications, they may well ask for corrections or even additional material. Just because you've handed the thesis in does not mean the process is over completely. Remember though, the goal of the examiners is to make the thesis better, and that's going to reflect better on you when your thesis finally gets published. And don't forget that aside from the content, the completed thesis is also formatted correctly. So it's worth making a few checks before you submit. The reviewers often return theses due to formatting errors. Some of the most common ones we see are the abstract is too long. The library database can only cope with abstracts of 150 words or less. If your abstract is longer than that, it will be cut. Literally, the last few words will be left off. So if it's more than 150 words, it will end up not making much sense. Second, and also extremely important, is are all your citations in the reference list? If not, add them. And is everything in your reference list cited in the text? If not, either remove them from the reference list or cite them in the text if you've missed out that step. And finally, is your thesis formatted correctly to the APA standards? Common errors that are often seen, for example, are numbering your headings and subheadings. The APA doesn't allow you to do that. And having a running head throughout the thesis is an essential part of that formatting. There's plenty of information on Royal Roads' Writing Centre to help you with formatting issues such as that, so I really do recommend that you use that. There are also other very, very good sites out there that can help with formatting thesis documents according to APA. Incorrectly located page numbers is another one. They should be the top right. And wrongly labelled tables and figures. Either that they're in the heading is in the caption is in the wrong place, they should be below the tables and figures, or the incorrect information is in there. Talking of tables and figures, I'd like to draw your attention to the importance of getting clearance on copyright issues. Any image or table that you've taken from another source must not only be cited, but also must be cleared for copyright before the thesis is published. This is unlike a class assignment, for example, because this is a piece of work that will go into the public domain. It will be published, and you need to get permission from the copyright holders. And this covers things like photographs, diagrams, logos, tables of data that you've extracted from, say, for example, a journal article, maps, and all those kind of things. There is plenty of guidance and information on copyright on the Royal Roads Copyright Office website, but it is your responsibility to get that clearance. If the copyright permission is not obtained, then the images will simply have to be removed before publication, and this may mean the thesis no longer makes sense. And publication is important. The thesis is a contribution to knowledge, so there is no point on spending so long on a piece of interesting research if no one gets to see it. So consider post-thesis other opportunities for publication other than just the publication on our library databases. Perhaps academic journals or trade publications or newsletters run by organizations that have been involved in the research, or local newspapers if you're researching particular communities, or any kind of way of getting your material out there. Of course, the content of those publications will be different in each case, and it'll be very much dependent on what you've actually done for your thesis. But why waste this stuff? This is good quality work that's of use to various different groups of people, so try and get it out there.